First contact under fire. The impact threw Riker Quinn 10 feet across the ship's bridge before darkness claimed him. When consciousness returned, it brought the acrid smell of burned circuitry and the distant howl of wind through fractured hull plates. His head pounded like a war drum as he pushed himself off the cold floor, each movement sending shards of pain through his ribs. "Diagnostics," he croaked, his voice barely audible in the emptiness. The ship's AI responded with static before a weak, fragmented voice emerged. "Multiple system failures. Hull integrity compromised. Life support at 17%. Location, uncharted." Riker cursed under his breath. The Pathfinder mission was supposed to be routine. Scout the edge of the Magellan cluster, catalog habitable zones, and return to Earth Outpost Sigma. Nothing in the briefing mentioned crash landing on a world that didn't exist on any stellar app. He stumbled toward the emergency kit, strapping his phase pistol to his thigh and tucking the compact survival pack against his back. The scanner showed breathable atmosphere outside, a small mercy amid catastrophe. "Vessel approaching," the AI warned, its voice fading as power systems continued to fail. "Unknown configuration." Riker moved to the observation port just in time to see a sleek obsidian craft descending through violet clouds, its design unlike anything in the Terran Alliance registry. Not pirates or corporate mercenaries, something else entirely. "Perfect," he muttered, grabbing the data core and sealing it in his pack. Whatever intelligence had brought him here, it wasn't staying behind for strangers to find. The harsh terrain greeted him as he forced open the emergency hatch, crimson soil stretching to distant mountains that seemed to float unnaturally against the horizon. Crystal formations jutted from the ground, catching light and fracturing it into spectral patterns across the landscape. Riker moved quickly, putting distance between himself and the crash site, each step calculated as he navigated the alien terrain. The air felt thinner here, carrying strange metallic undertones with each breath. His training kept him focused. 20 years in the Frontier Scout Corps had taught him that survival meant adaptability, observation, and never panicking. He made it 3 kilometers before the sound reached him, a high-pitched whine that pierced the air like a needle. Dropping into a crouch behind a formation of ruby-colored crystal, he watched as the obsidian craft descended near his wrecked ship. The vessel's hull seemed to ripple, as if not fully committed to solid form. 3 figures emerged, tall and lithe, their movements fluid and precise. They wore armor that shifted colors with the light, adapting to the environment. Hunters, Riker realized, watching them spread out and begin tracking. Hunters looking for him. He backed away slowly, planning to circle around toward a canyon he'd spotted earlier. That's when his foot connected with a stone, sending it skittering across the crimson ground. The nearest hunter turned instantly, its helmet retracting like liquid to reveal features both alien and eerily beautiful. Skin the color of burnished copper, eyes with vertical pupils that widened at the sight of him. The hunter made a sound, not quite speech, more like harmonized tones that resonated in Riker's chest. Then it moved, closing the distance between them with impossible speed. Riker fired twice, the plasma bolts scattering harmlessly against the hunter's rippling armor. He turned to run but found his path blocked by a second hunter. Before he could react, something struck him from behind. Not a weapon but a body tackling him with precision that knocked the air from his lungs without breaking anything. He hit the ground hard, instinctively rolling to face his attacker, but found himself pinned beneath a weight that felt like liquid metal solidified. The hunter who'd tackled him pressed one hand against his chest, the other poised near his throat, a flexible blade extending from a wrist gauntlet that hummed with energy. That's when he saw her face clearly, the copper skin framed by what looked like tendrils rather than hair, each one moving slightly as if sensing the air. Her eyes locked onto his, pupils contracting to thin lines. "Why do you not struggle?" she asked, her voice resonating with multiple harmonic tones that seemed to vibrate through his bones rather than travel through air. "Others fight until the end." Riker forced himself to breathe evenly, conscious of the blade hovering near his jugular. "Fighting when you've already lost just gets you killed faster." The hunter tilted her head, the movement unnervingly smooth. "Yet your heart rate indicates no fear." Oh, I'm terrified, Riker admitted with a half smile. I just don't let it make my decisions for me. Something flickered across her features, curiosity perhaps, or confusion. The pressure against his chest eased slightly, though the blade remained. You are not like the others of your kind we have encountered, she said, those vertical pupils dilating slightly. I get that a lot at parties too, Riker replied, earning him a narrowing of those alien eyes. The other hunters approached, their helmets still intact, making those same harmonic sounds that Riker now recognized as language. His captor responded, without looking away from him, her voice carrying tones that seemed to indicate disagreement. They wish to take you for examination, she explained, studying his reaction. Standard protocol for unknown species in restricted territories. Hate to disappoint, but humans don't respond well to examination. We're funny that way. Another tilt of that copperhead. You have a designation. Human. Riker Quinn. Scout Class Pathfinder, he offered. And you are? The hunter paused as, if considering whether to answer. I am called Navarra, hunt leader of Lyrian Vanguard. Her eyes narrowed again. Former hunt leader. Something in her tone caught Riker's attention, a dissonance that hadn't been there before. Exile, perhaps? Demotion? Before he could ponder further, the ground beneath them trembled. The other hunters stepped back, their postures suddenly alert. Navarra's attention shifted from Riker to the horizon, where massive crystalline formations had begun to pulse with light. The resonance begins, she said, urgency threading through her harmonic voice. We must seek shelter. Mind filling me in on what resonance means? Riker asked as Navarra's weight suddenly lifted from his chest. It means, she said, extending a hand to pull him up with surprising strength, that everything within 5 kilometers is about to shatter, including bones. The other hunters were already retreating to their vessel, making urgent harmonic calls to Navarra. She responded with tones that seemed final, dismissive. They hesitated only briefly before departing without her. Your friends are leaving you behind, Riker observed as the obsidian craft rose swiftly into the violet sky. They were never my friends, Navarra replied, scanning the horizon. The caves there will shield us if we reach them before the third pulse. Another tremor shook the ground, stronger this time. In the distance, smaller crystal formations exploded into fragments that hovered unnaturally before crashing down. That's the second pulse, Navarra explained, already moving with that fluid grace toward a dark opening in a nearby cliff face. The third will be exponentially stronger. Riker followed, matching her pace despite his injuries. Any particular reason you're helping the alien intruder instead of leaving with your crew? Navarra glanced back at him, those vertical pupils widening slightly. Perhaps I find your lack of struggle intriguing. Or perhaps I simply wish to understand why the Directorate wants your kind eliminated so desperately. Eliminated? Riker nearly stumbled. We've never even encountered your species before. No, Navarra agreed as they reached the cave entrance, but we have encountered yours. And that, she added as she pulled him inside just as the third pulse began, is why your voice shook me more than your presence. You speak truth when you should know nothing of us at all. The cave walls trembled around them as the resonance reached its peak, crystal shards raining down outside like lethal stars. In the dim light, Navarra's eyes seemed to glow faintly, fixed on Riker with an intensity that made his spine tingle. When this passes, she said, her voice dropping to lower harmonics that felt almost intimate in their vibration, you will tell me why a human pathfinder carries star charts marked with Lyrian outposts that even I was not permitted to know existed. Riker's hand moved unconsciously to his pack where the data core rested. I think, he said slowly, we might both have been lied to. Part 2. Bonds forged in stardust. The resonance storm passed, leaving eerie silence in its wake. Crystal fragments settled into new formations across the crimson landscape, glittering like frozen fire under twin moons that had risen during their shelter. Navarra stood at the cave entrance, her copper skin bathed in the dual moonlight. She'd removed portions of her armor, revealing a bodysuit beneath that seemed woven from something between fabric and living tissue, pulsing faintly with her heartbeat. "Your ship," she said without turning. It was not designed for combat. Riker leaned against the cave wall, checking his wounds. "Exploration vessel. We map new territories, catalog resources, identify potential outpost locations. Now I'll create the second part of our HFY story, continuing from where we left off with Riker, Quinn, and Navarra. The alien fighter had me helpless, but it was her voice that shook me. Part 2. Bonds forged in stardust. The resonant storm passed, leaving eerie silence in its wake. Crystal fragments settled into new formations across the crimson landscape, glittering like frozen fire under twin moons that had risen during their shelter. Navarra stood at the cave entrance, her copper skin bathed in the dual moonlight. She'd removed portions of her armor, revealing a bodysuit beneath that seemed woven from something between fabric and living tissue, pulsing faintly with her heartbeat. "Your ship," she said without turning. It was not designed for combat. Riker leaned against the cave wall, checking his wounds. "Exploration vessel. We map new territories, catalog resources, identify potential outpost locations. Yet you carry classified Lyrian strategic data." Now she turned, those vertical pupils narrowed to mere slits. Data that would be death to possess, even for most Lyrians. Riker pulled the datacore from his pack, its surface glowing with faint blue light. "I don't know what this contains. My orders were to deliver it to coordinates at the edge of the Magellan cluster. Something pulled my ship off course, some kind of directed gravity well that wasn't on any scanner." Navarra approached, moving with that fluid grace that made her seem partly liquid. She reached for the core, then hesitated, her hand hovering inches away. "If I touch this, and it contains what I suspect, my exile becomes permanent. More than exile, I become nameless." "Is that worse than death?" Riker asked. "Death ends. Nameless continues." She met his eyes. "But so does truth." She took the core, her fingers working across its surface with practiced precision. Holographic displays bloomed around them, star maps and coordinates, facility schematics, and weapon designs. But most disturbing were the images of humans, prisoners in Lyrian facilities, some undergoing procedures that made Riker's stomach turn. "Your people have been experimenting on humans," he said, anger rising in his throat. "Not my people," Navarra corrected, her harmonics discordant with distress. "The Directorate. They claimed humans were aggressive expansionists, threatening Lyrian territories. These operations were classified as defensive research. That's what you call this?" Riker gestured at images of dissection and neural mapping. "It's why I was exiled," Navarra said quietly. "I questioned the necessity of such methods during a captive transport. I refused an order to terminate a human who attempted escape." Her eyes met his. "He looked at me as you did, not with fear but with determination. Understanding." Riker studied her face, searching for deception and finding only a pain that matched his own confusion. "So we've both been pawns in someone else's game. The question remains, who sent you with this data, knowing what it contained?" Before Riker could answer, a signal pulsed from the core, a hidden transmission activating. New data streamed across the holographic display, revealing a name that made Navarra's breath catch: General Thorn Vex. "The Directorate's war architect," she explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's been orchestrating conflicts between our species, manipulating both sides toward war." "But why?" Riker asked, scanning the transmission details. "What could he possibly gain from resources?" Navarra interrupted, pointing to extraction projections. "Your colonies sit on the richest deposits of quantum crystalline in the known galaxy. The Directorate needs it for new weapons technology, but Lyrian law forbids aggressive annexation. Unless they can claim defensive necessity," Riker finished, the pieces falling into place. "Frame humans as the aggressors, create justification for full military response." Navarra's expression hardened. We need to transmit this data to both our governments before Vex realizes his security has been compromised. Riker checked his scanner. There's a communication relay within reach, but it's in a Lyrian outpost. Getting in won't be easy. For a human alone? Impossible, Navarra agreed. But I still retain access codes, and with your unexpected approach to problems, we might succeed where warriors would fail. Their eyes met again, understanding passing between them. Alien to human, exile to explorer, both betrayed by those they trusted. Why help me? Riker asked. Your exile might be pardoned if you turned me in. Navarra's lips curved in what might have been a smile. Perhaps because you didn't struggle when you should have. Or perhaps, she added, reaching out to touch his face with fingers that felt like warm silk, because I've seen enough of battle to recognize when peace is the braver choice. The journey to the outpost required crossing a terrain that seemed designed to kill them. Crystal fields that amplified. Sunlight to burning intensity alternated with pockets of gas that Navarra warned would dissolve human lungs in seconds. They moved by night, navigating by the light of twin moons that cast double shadows across the alien landscape. Your species adapts quickly, Navarra observed, as Riker navigated a particularly treacherous ridge. Most non-Lyrians would have succumbed to exhaustion hours ago. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, Riker explained, his breath forming small clouds in the cooling night air. We're not the strongest or fastest, but we keep going when others stop. An admirable trait, she replied, though sometimes knowing when to stop prevents greater disaster. Speaking from experience? Riker asked, noticing how her harmonics shifted to lower registers when discussing philosophy rather than tactics. The TIO Directorate teaches that unflinching pursuit of objective is strength. My hesitation was seen as weakness. Her copper skin seemed to dim slightly. I came to believe the opposite, that strength lies in questioning what we're taught to accept without thought. Dawn found them crouched behind crystalline formations that overlooked the outpost, a structure that seemed to grow organically, from the planet's surface, its walls shimmering with the same rippling quality as Lyrian armor. 12 guards, Riker noted, adjusting his scanner. 4 at the perimeter, 8 inside. Security systems I can't even begin to identify. The outer defenses recognize Lyrian biosignatures, Navarra explained. I can bypass those, but internal scanners will detect your human presence immediately. Riker studied the layout, mind racing through possibilities. What if they didn't detect a human? Navarra's vertical pupils widened. Explain. Your armor adapts to environment, changes properties. Could it mask my biosignature? Make me read as Lyrian, at least temporarily, she considered, head tilting in that unnervingly fluid motion. Possible, but painful for you. The interface requires direct neural connection. Pain is temporary. Interspecies war lasts generations. Navarra's expression shifted to something Riker couldn't quite identify. Respect, perhaps, or concern. Very well, but there is one more complication. She pointed to a secondary structure adjacent to the main outpost. That is where we must transmit from, and it requires Sentinel clearance. I held Hunt leader rank, not Sentinel. Let me guess, Riker said with a grim smile. We need to convince an actual Sentinel to help us, or borrow their identity, Navarra replied, her gaze shifting to a lone figure emerging from the outpost. The plan came together quickly. Riker was continually impressed by how Navarra adapted her tactical thinking to incorporate his unorthodox suggestions. They waited until the Sentinel separated from the main patrol, then Navarra moved with that liquid-swift grace, incapacitating him before he could trigger an alarm. The process of adapting the armor was exactly as painful as promised. Riker bit down hard as Navarra attached neural connectors to his spine, each one sending fire through his nervous system. Your tolerance is remarkable, she observed, making final adjustments. Most would be unconscious. Had worse hangovers in basic training, he managed through gritted teeth. Though not by much, the armor settled against his skin, initially cold and unyielding before gradually warming. conforming to his body in a way that felt disturbingly intimate, like being embraced by something alive and intelligent. His vision blurred momentarily, then sharpened beyond normal human acuity as the helmet sealed around his head. "How do I look?" he asked, his voice sounding strange through the armor's harmonic modulators. "Like a poorly assembled Lyrian," Navarra replied. "But the biofields read authentic. Remember? No speaking. Follow my lead, match my stride pattern, and if challenged, act arrogant and superior." "Got it." Her eyes narrowed. "Act respectful, of authority. Arrogance is a human trait." "Says the woman who tackled me the moment we met," Riker countered, earning what might have been the Lyrian equivalent of an eye roll. They approached the outpost together, Navarra's borrowed sentinel credentials, granting them immediate access. Inside, the architecture disoriented Riker. Corridors that seemed to breathe, walls that pulsed with information and patterns his human brain couldn't process, even with the armor's assistance. They were halfway to the communication hub when an alarm sounded, not for them but throughout the facility. "Perimeter breach, southern quadrant." Navarra translated the harmonic announcement. "Another ship has landed." Riker checked the scanner built into his gauntlet. "Not human design." "Scavengers," Navarra confirmed, her tone darkening. "They follow resonance storms, collect technology and resources from damaged facilities." "Convenient timing," Riker muttered, almost like someone wanted to ensure this outpost was vulnerable. They reached the communication hub as chaos erupted elsewhere in the facility. Navarra worked quickly, her fingers dancing across control surfaces that responded to her touch with glowing symbols. "The Sentinel override isn't accepting my input," she said, frustration threading through her harmonics. "Someone's locked down the system remotely." Riker studied the interface, recognizing patterns, despite the alien design. "It's requiring command-level authorization, a failsafe." "Which we don't have," Navarra said, her copper skin dimming with what Riker now recognized as stress. "Maybe we do." Riker reached into his pack, extracting a small device he'd salvaged from his ship. "Universal override, standard equipment for pathfinders entering potentially hostile territory. It won't work forever, but might give us a few minutes of access." He connected the device to the Lyrian interface, grimacing as the neural link with his borrowed armor intensified the feedback. Code structures flashed across his enhanced vision, alien algorithms battling human ingenuity. "It's working," Navarra said, surprise evident in her voice. "How did your people develop countermeasures for systems you've never encountered?" "We didn't," Riker explained through waves of pain as the override fought for dominance. "But pattern recognition is universal. Digital lockpicking isn't so different from star to star." The system yielded, control interfaces blossoming with access points. Navarra wasted no time, uploading the damning evidence to both human and Lyrian. Leadership channels, proof of General Vex's manipulation, the staged conflicts, the false flag operations designed to push both species toward mutual destruction. "Transmission complete," she announced, disconnecting from the console. "Now we must—" The door slid open, revealing a Lyrian officer flanked by guards. His armor bore command insignia, and his face, remarkably similar to Navarra's in structure, but male in aspect, registered shock before hardening into rage. "Hunt Leader Navarra," he said, his harmonics sharp with disgust. "The exile returns, now with a human pet disguised in sacred armor." His gaze shifted to Riker. "Did you think we wouldn't detect the irregularities in your biosignature, Commander?" "Jalak," Navarra acknowledged, her posture shifting subtly into combat readiness. "You've arrived too late. The truth has been transmitted." "Truth?" Jalak laughed, the sound like breaking crystal. "Your truth means nothing. General Vex controls the communication relays. Your transmission was intercepted before it reached anyone of consequence." Riker's hand moved toward his weapon, but Navarra's slight headshake stopped him. Something in her posture had changed. Resignation replaced by determination. "You're wrong, Jalak," she said, her harmonics dropping to registers that seemed to vibrate through the room itself. I didn't send the transmission through official channels. Understanding dawned on Jalek's face. The resonance network. You used the crystal formations themselves. The same network that connects all Lyrian worlds, Navarra confirmed. The one thing Vex couldn't control because it predates our civilization. Fury contorted Jalek's features. Kill them both, he ordered his guards. The human first. What happened next would later be described in human military academies as a perfect example of synchronized combat between different species. Navarra moved with blinding speed, her blade materializing as she deflected the first guard's attack. Riker, empowered by the neural link with Lyrian technology, found his reflexes enhanced beyond human limitations. They fought back to back, her fluid grace complementing his pragmatic efficiency. When a guard flanked Navarra, Riker intercepted the attack. When Riker stumbled under Jalek's assault, Navarra's blade created the opening he needed to recover. We need to reach the landing bay, Navarra called over the chaos of battle. The scavengers have created enough distraction for us to escape. Riker nodded, understanding her plan without further explanation. They fought their way through corridors, a bizarre harmony forming between them, human adaptability merging with Lyrian precision. They reached the landing bay just as the facility's power fluctuated, evidence of the scavengers' work elsewhere. A small scout ship sat unattended, its sleek design promising the speed they desperately needed. Can you fly that? Riker asked, deflecting a blast from a pursuing guard. Better than you, Navarra replied, a hint of what might have been humor coloring her harmonics. They secured the vessel, Navarra's override codes granting immediate access. As they lifted off, the outpost receding beneath them, Riker felt the neural interfaces of his borrowed armor beginning to fail, pain returning in waves. Where to now? He asked, removing the helmet with a gasp of relief. Navarra set coordinates, her expression unreadable. To meet those who will receive our transmission. If Jalek was telling the truth about Vex controlling official channels, our only hope lies with those who monitor the resonance network. And who might that be? She turned to him, those vertical pupils dilating slightly. The exiled ones, those like me who questioned, who refused orders, who chose conscience over duty. As the ship accelerated beyond the atmosphere, Riker looked back at the planet's surface, crystal formations glinting like stars across crimson terrain, beautiful and deadly. You know, he said, carefully removing the rest of the alien armor. For a first contact scenario, this could have gone worse. Navarra's lips curved in what was definitely becoming a smile. How so? Well, we're both still alive. We've exposed a conspiracy. And, he added, meeting her gaze, I've made at least one friend who doesn't think humans are irredeemable monsters. Friend, she repeated as if testing the word. Perhaps that is where both our species have been mistaken, seeing enemies where allies could exist. The scout ship entered jump space, stars stretching into lines of light around them. Whatever awaited them, whether justice or continued exile, they would face it together, proof that understanding could triumph over fear, even between worlds. And Riker realized that what had truly shaken him wasn't Navarra's voice with its strange harmonics, or her strength, or even her alien beauty. It was the recognition that across the vastness of space, courage and conscience spoke the same language, no translation needed.